What's up, everybody? Welcome to the channel, and we're going to go over my 4-2-1-3 setup in eFootball, and that is because it is phenomenal the way it works out, and I wanted to show you why it is so unique. If you come from FC, you know it is the most popular formation right now. It was just added into the game, a year, 2 years ago, in FC 25 post-patch. It became by far the most used and most OP setup. If you come from UFL, you know it's not even in the game. There's always been different variations of 4-3-3, but what makes the 4-2-1-3 unique is that you have two CDMs, but you don't have any CMs. You have an attacking mid. Now, the beauty of eFootball is that you can get way more particular than the other football games. It's one of the many reasons that eFootball is just a superior football game overall. So many details on and off the pitch that make it amazing, and we're going to talk about some of those details with regards to the tactics. My particular 4-2-1-3, you'll get to see a lot of this stuff, and we're going to go into detail how each of my players fits this 4-2-1-3 and helps me out on the pitch. So without further ado, let's get into it. We're going to start off with goalkeeper, which for me, it's Thibaut Courtois, a defensive goalkeeper, right? You have offensive goalkeeper and defensive. You can probably imagine offensive goalkeepers come off their line a lot. Defensive goalkeepers like to stay on their line. If you want them to come off their line, you can still manually pull them off. But for the most part, they feel most comfortable on the line, shot stopping. And Thibaut Courtois does that excellently, just like in real life. Again, that's what Konami does well. They bring real life players and the way they play into the game. They do that very well. Now, sometimes they release players with different types of skill sets that might have them play differently. Also, different cards that match different, times in a player's career. For Thibaut Courtois, maybe at a younger age, he was a little more spry, but right now, he's still incredible. Defensive goalkeeper, stand on the line, saving shots is what he does best. He also has high punt and long throws, and I love high punt because it allows me to get the ball, particularly when I have Kohler up top, or even back when I had Holland. It gives you a chance, especially if maybe you're getting outplayed or the opponent has pressure on you, gives you a chance to get the ball way upfield, potentially win a knock on and create an attack yourself. eFootball is unique in that way. Every aspect of the game can help you change the momentum, and Thibaut Courtois' high punt is one of those ways. Brilliant goalkeeper, no boosters or anything, but this Team of the Week card, excellent. Next, we have right back, which for me, the brand new poll from yesterday on the second spin, Javier Zanetti, the Inter Milan legend, and he is an offensive fullback. You see there as I demonstrate, he will get up and down the line. Not to be confused with a fullback finisher, which likes to go into the middle as sort of a false center mid, if you will. So, as a offensive fullback, he can help get those crosses into Kohler or just help join the attack and be an outlet pass. And I strongly suggest you have one. It doesn't matter if it's the right back or left back, which honestly, my Maldini and Zanetti can be interchanged. I just got Maldini with a high proficiency on the right back. Zanetti already has high proficiency, which means he can play both sides equally well to the highest caliber, and so it doesn't matter right back or left back, but just have one either offensive fullback or fullback finisher, so you have them joining the attack. Three's plenty of cover, especially when you have two defensive midfielders. Now, Maldini can also play center back at high proficiency, but his play style does not match with center back. He's a defensive fullback. He'd have to play left or right back to have that play style activate. It doesn't mean he can't be a great player, and sometimes it even helps, I learned, not to have that play style activate, because then the player will be more well-rounded and won't just be going for the way that particular play style makes the AI kind of move. With that being said, if you can help it, the opposite side of your more attacking wingback, try to get someone like Maldini who can play center back. If you can't, that's fine. Just have the opposite side be a defensive fullback. Leave it at that. But if you have someone that has high proficiency, I wouldn't do it if you have medium proficiency. Some may. I would say only high proficiency like a Maldini. Push him to center back, right? So then I have three players covering the back area at all times with my two defensive midfielders, then Zanetti shooting up and forward, so plenty of cover for him, and that way I can attack with 5 players up. Now, last but not least, my center backs, as well as my defensive midfielder. For me, all three are destroyers, which you don't want if you can help it. I love what a destroyer does, which, if you want to see, you can go into the player description where all the attributes and stuff is, and then you click your start button on PlayStation, whatever it may be on Xbox, I don't know, and you can read all the playstyles and a ton of other information. But you see here, essentially a destroyer is a player that's not going to sit back and just guard the gate. They're going to be like a attack guard dog. They're not even going to let you get to the gate if they can help it. The problem with that is sometimes they can get out of position pressing, trying to win the ball back. So having two center backs and a CDM with destroyer, you can imagine, can pull players out of position quite a bit. For now, it is fine. As I go forward, obviously I want one center back to be build up if I can help it, and then my defensive midfielder, a better option is Anchorman. However, to counter the fact that I have Gattuso as, my third destroyer with my center backs, here's what I do. And keep in mind, I could do this with my center backs, but I don't, because naturally center backs are going to be more defensive anyways. Yes, they're going to be a little more aggressive, both being destroyers. However, with Gattuso being my defensive midfielder as a destroyer, he is much more likely to get caught out of position, either going too far up or too far wide. And so I go into individual instructions, and then under defensive, there are two different choices where I can put a player to stay back and not push forward, as you see here. So I do that for both my regular tactic and my sub tactic. And just for good measure, for the other one, I didn't have anything going into that slot, so I did another defensive slot to keep Maldini from pushing forward. Not that he ever did push forward too much. He can be a beast going forward, but I already have Zanetti as an offensive fullback, right? Or even if I had Trent, who was a fullback finisher, pushing into the middle, I want Maldini staying back with Rudiger, Araujo, and Gattuso holding down the fort, making sure opponents can't just easily get through on goal. Now, last but not least, on the defensive side, I have Andrea Pirlo, who is another defensive midfielder, but he is an orchestrator, which essentially is a deep-lying playmaker, right? In FC, they actually call it a deep-lying playmaker. In UFL, well, they don't have any of this. But a deep-lying playmaker, if you don't know, or an orchestrator in eFootball, essentially is exactly what it sounds like. He orchestrates plays. He makes passes and tries to help initiate attacks from a deeper lying position. The beautiful thing, though, in eFootball, outside of that's different from FC, is that they didn't butcher his defense. He is a superior defender in eFootball, so he can win the ball, make great tackles, interceptions, whatever, and then play the ball at the field with elite passing. He's one of the top 10 players in the game, as he's widely regarded. You can look around and check my facts on that. Many players say it, and that is because he is brilliant defensively and can make brilliant passes. So, on the defensive side of the ball, if you're playing a 4-2-1-3, I strongly suggest, 1, you don't go 3 destroyers like I do. 2, if you can help it, get an anchor man, but if you can't, make sure you put that CDM that you want, your main number 6, defensive, so he can't push forward, and maybe even go with anchoring in the second slot. Now, the reason why I don't, the second slot where I have Maldini as defensive too, the reason why I don't, and I'm going to experiment with this, is because since Zanetti shoots up and back, I want Gattuso, or whoever would be your more offensive back, I want Gattuso able to slide over and cover for Zanetti in case he can't get back in time. Now, we will see how that goes. I might end up putting anchoring on him anyway, but for now I'm going to experiment with that. That's why I have Gattuso on that same side as my attacking wingback. So that does it for the defensive side of the 4-2-1-3. But before we get into the attacking side, let's talk about the play style we will be utilizing, or should I say play styles. If you're new to eFootball, I'll do a ton of different videos on different details that I don't go into. But just to summarize, the managers matter because they have different proficiencies in playstyles, meaning your players' attributes are actually affected by the playstyle specialties that managers have. Some only have one. The manager I have, Gasparini, who I bought for a whopping $5 from the store, has the two most popular, and I use both. I used quick counter for my regular tactic, and then my sub-tactic, as they call it, which in the game would be the defensive, right? Offensive is regular, defensive is sub-tactic. Why they don't just call it, regular and sub or whatever, because it's kind of confusing, I don't know. But you can simply switch it by holding up or down on your D-pad, right? And so for me, Gasparini, he's equally proficient in quick counter and long ball counter, and it really does help having both of them and being able to switch in game, because your opponent has to be watching and ready for you to switch, and if they aren't, you can catch them off guard and take advantage of it. Not to mention, you can better prepare for opponents and better face whatever they're coming with. There's different play styles that match up well with other playing styles, right? So that's why it matters. You'll look every game at what manager your opponent has, and then you can see which play style they go with. If they have a manager with a few different ones, you can catch it pretty quickly, and a lot of times you can tell by the way they line up. I'm still working on all that, and so I will do a video detailing everything there. I don't want you to get too confused there. I want you to stick to, especially if you're new, obviously, stick to the tactics part of this. So long story short, if you will, my manager, Gasparini, proficient in 2 play styles. So you see here, as with everything, Konami gives very good details, and on this I'll give you the summary. You can read it or pause the video and read all the different areas and what the quick counter does. But essentially, it's a pressure tactic, right? It's the closest thing to FC's constant pressure, where when you lose the ball, everybody is trying to quickly win the ball back. You have a high defensive line, and it talks about the players immediately once you win the ball making runs forward. So as you can imagine, it is the most popular. It is the meta play style because it helps you play with the least amount of skill. And it seems that even though you have a beautiful or a game that has an ability to create beautiful football, right? They put these tactics in allegedly for lower skilled players, and then it turned into just being adopted as the meta used by many players. I'd say like every 9 out of 10 opponents that I face use this playstyle. There's other playstyles that can work very well, and I've played some very good players utilizing them, but you can imagine a pressure playstyle where you compact your team, as you see my main tactic, and then just go for constant through balls over and over and over. Now, I absolutely hate this. I can't stand quick counter. I wish they'd remove it. But to counter it, you essentially have to at least combat it with the players blocking off their passing lanes. So one thing you won't see from me is I'll never just try to use triangle over and over and over after I win the ball, and I don't want to just run at players 100 miles an hour over and over and over. I'm always trying to be detailed in my defense and block the passing lanes, or not commit to tackles unless I can 100% win the ball. We're particularly looking to play the ball into Kohler's feet as a target man, and then he can lay it off to any one of my deep lying forwards. Now, I have 3 deep lying forwards starting. I also have a bench where I could play a more true attacking midfielder, but the reason why you see Cantona as a deep lying forward as an attacking midfielder is because sometimes, as I said earlier, when you put players out of what their play style is, right? So as a deep lying forward, he has to be either a center forward or a secondary striker with the SS. As an attacking midfielder, he can still do a very good job. He's highly proficient in that position. It's just his playstyle won't activate, so he will be a good all-around attacking midfielder. And why I like him in that particular role is even though his passing isn't as high as Totti or Cruyff, he just isn't built to play kind of a false winger as sometimes the shadow strikers on the outside are, or the secondary strikers as it's called in eFootball. He does have pinpoint crossing. He is smooth on the ball, but Cruyff and Totti just do better on the outsides. Not to mention Cantona, he's an absolute monster with shooting from range, right? And a lot of that comes down to the skill sets he possesses, which, again, you can go into the player descriptions and you scroll down and you can see everything pretty much, but you can see what kind of skills each player possesses. And Cantona is a beast shooting from distance, and he can score in several different ways from distance. And I wanted to add that it's not on purpose that I went for deep lying playmakers. That's just how it ended up. It does work out great in this 4-2-1-3, but you can see on this list here, there are a ton of different roles that could fit the 4-2-1-3. A lot of it is just how you want to play it. For me, I have the big man Kohler up top, but I don't just use him for headers. In fact, I hate that type of, put just jumping and heading build on Kohler and that's all you do. Absolutely not. He is a target man for a reason because he is great at not just knocking down the ball and creating attacks that way, but getting the ball at his feet, laying it back, and then you create your attack from there, which is exactly what I want to go for. And the 4-2-1-3 does a great job. And having 3 deep lying forwards around my target man Kohler, it fits perfectly with what I'm trying to do. I don't just want to play triangle, 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 triangle. Sometimes that's going to be open, but more often than not for me, I'm going to Kohler's feet, laying it back to either Cantona or Totti or Cruyff, and then we go from there. We build and we create chances with 4 incredible attacking players, spearheaded by the big man, young Kohler, who, as I said earlier, is a target man. There's also a poacher and an advanced striker. Now, a poacher, I do have one on the bench, Bebeto, and he is capable, or I guess what that role is capable of, is just lingering in and around the box and being ready for a ball, any balls that come around to just finish them off. That's what a poacher does. But outside of around the box in the build-up area, Bebeto works much like an advanced striker with the runs and stuff he makes. However, in this meta, I would say in a 4-2-1-3, you would want an advanced striker, right? There's currently one out, Eto'o, who is arguably maybe not even arguably, the best striker in the game. And much of that is because it's Samuel Eto'o. He's a beast. But also, as an advanced striker, he's constantly looking to play off of, a defender's shoulder and make runs in behind. So that's the 4-2-1-3. And as you see, it's so compact because we're going to play a ton of opponents that are playing quick counter. And instead of going to long ball counter, which I may as I get better at it, but instead of going for that, I just face it head on and try to compact my team and not let them get these through balls in, because I found that they would do it more often when I was playing long ball counter. And when I matched quick counter, like fighting fire with fire, I would intercept a lot more balls and then go right back to my game plan, trying to play up to Kohler, lay it off to one of my 3 surrounding attackers, and then go from there and try to create chances and score goals, not to mention getting Zanetti flying up that sideline and adding an extra attacker and having Pirlo there just in case the interception comes his way to slice and dice the opponent too. I mean, it's just a complete beast of a team, and I love this setup to fight the meta, because when my opponents see this, there's no doubt in my mind that they're thinking through ball, through ball, through ball, and it just isn't the case. Or they're thinking cross, cross, cross because of Kohler. Either of those are how I play. Even though, of course, Kohler is great at headers, so sometimes I will score crosses, and especially in my sub-tactic, which is still a 4-2-1-3. It's just set up in an entirely different way using an entirely different playstyle. Like I said, my manager has 2 playstyles, quick counter and long ball counter, that he's proficient at. Now, just like I did with quick counter, you could pause the video and read all these different parts of long ball counter and what it specializes in, but I can just summarize it as the anti-quick counter formation, in which if you're playing opponents with quick counter, you're supposed to use long ball counter. It's the best against it, they say. However, for me, like I said, I like to fight fire with fire and go quick counter versus quick counter. I do like this long ball counter in other situations, sometimes versus quick counter, but essentially it is a spread out, get the ball up the field as quickly as possible counter setup, right? That's why, hence the name, long ball counter. Literally, your players spread out and you look for longer passes to get up the field, which is why I like going to the wings in this setup. As far as defensively, instead of having a high line, your players drop back, right? Giving your opponent some space, but you do get numbers behind the ball. And then as soon as you win the ball, boom, they take off wider and up the field, particularly up the field. Doesn't mean that I'm just going to dump the ball in over the top. In fact, the vast majority of the time I'm keeping the ball on the ground. I'm just playing different sequences. For instance, let's say I win the ball with Zanetti, and then I play it into Pirlo's feet. Pirlo might go straight into Kohler's feet, lay it back to Cantona, who sprays it out to either Totti or Cruyff, and then we get it cross into Kohler. Or you might have Zanetti flying up that right side, ball gets played into Cantona's feet, he plays it through to Zanetti, and then Zanetti drops it to Cruyff, who then can shoot, or play it into Kohler or Totti or even Cantona for a longer range shot. It's just a more spread out counter setup, and it fits the players I have very well, hence why I use it as a sub tactic, because many times I'll switch, during the game, right? Some managers only have one playstyle proficiency, so you literally will switch to through different managers game after game after game. The beauty of having a manager with multiple playstyle proficiencies, you can throw the opponent off and use multiple during a game. You just have to make sure that if you have a sub tactic like I do and it's a different playstyle, the players you have fit that playstyle, or if there are certain subs you have to make those subs. You don't want players that don't fit a playstyle in your system. It will definitely throw you off. So in the long ball counter setup, the main difference, right? A lot of the same things apply. You wouldn't want 3 destroyers, so that's something I'll change in the future. Told you already with Gattuso, I do the same thing with the sub tactic, making him defensive so he doesn't venture forward. You could even throw anchor on him so he doesn't venture wide. I still want him to cover for Zanetti, who will still be shooting up that right side as an offensive fullback. Everything's still the same defensively. And even offensively, it's still the same. I would say the biggest difference is there's 2. One, Pirlo, instead of a DMF, he is a CMF. He's still an orchestrator in both of those. He's still looking to be that bridge between the defense into the attack, spraying balls up front. He's just further up the field, and now that he's a CMF instead of a DMF, he has a little more offensive duties than he would in the quick counter 4-2-1-3 setup. The second big change is going from the 2 secondary strikers, right, deep lying forwards, Totti and Cruyff, become wingers. And the reason for this is simply that we want to go from a compact system to a spread out system. That's where we will catch the opponent off guard. So I would use this tactic maybe when it is congested in the middle, and instead of the opponent coming at me and me needing to defend, the congestion is hurting me. I'm stopping myself from getting more chances. So then I'll go with the long ball counter, more spread out, and try to spray the ball through to my wings and then either into Kohler on a cross, or I could still cut inside and shoot, or then go from the wings, pull my opponent out wide, and go into the middle to Cantona for a bomb, right? So there's several different options. It's not just a crossing setup, even though the opponent will think that, and that's the whole point too, is that you're going to throw them off guard. That's one of the biggest things you're trying to do. Get your opponent to make the wrong tactical changes, and it just benefits you more. Now, the next thing I want to say on that is something I'll go into in more detail in another video, like I said, but to summarize it, Totti and Cruyff can't necessarily play winger just if you got them, right? You have to do some things first. One in particular, which is position training. Cruyff is already highly proficient at winger, so he was good to go. However, Totti, he was not. I had to make him proficient at winger. I think he was like it was a secondary position or whatnot. But then I did position training on him, and not only is he highly proficient as a left winger, but I believe it was a right winger where I added that in there. Or it could be vice versa. But long story short, position trainings give you the ability to give these players high proficiency in surrounding positions. And so that will help their movement, as well as the fact that the deep lying forward playstyle will not activate since they're wingers. Deep lying forward only activates for secondary strikers or center forwards. Since they are now left wing forwards and right wing forwards, it will not activate, meaning they will be more well-rounded wingers, right? I don't want them having that play style anymore, right? Because they're in different roles. Now they will act more like wingers because they're highly proficient as wingers, but without that deep lying forward play style. You have to learn these things, but don't get overwhelmed by it. You enjoy the process. It's a beautiful thing, man. The details Konami added are great, and as you learn, slowly but surely, you will see how these different things benefit you in game, and I'm having a blast. It's just so gratifying, too. It's a satisfying feeling when you start to really understand these things, and you can dive into it, and that's one of the reasons I'm making this video and going in depth into the players I'm using, why I'm using them, kind of showing you some of the stuff that you can look up in the background, because then you can start exploring yourself but have a base to know what's going on, right? So I'm kind of providing a summary detail of a lot of things, showing you different areas to look, and then you can take it from there. The bottom line is, unlike the other football games, you could spend hours going into all the details Konami provided and learning everything, but obviously that's a lot to take in. So it's just one of those things. How much time do you want to invest in learning all this stuff? You can still take it slowly, go out on the pitch, and still do just fine and learn as you go. That's kind of what I've been doing. But that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to commit more time to eFootball, because not only are the other two games, pretty much broken, especially UFL, and FC's just FC. I mean, the community's broken. So the game has its issues, but you add that with a super toxic community, and that whole thing's messed up over there. eFootball, I'm not saying that the meta is not messed up right now. It absolutely is, but it's something that Konami added, and they absolutely can remove if they wanted. And not only that, but the game is excellent overall. You still have the potential to play beautiful football, and all these details show that Konami truly wants you to have a very realistic experience. I mean, some of this stuff is just phenomenal, and you can really gain advantages in these menus, in these tactics too. And by knowing the players, knowing the managers, knowing how the play styles work, knowing how the skills work that your players have, knowing all of this information is only going to help you. So take the time. It's no rush, right? That's part of the fun in it. They may lack in, you're not going out to complete this SBC and that SBC and, do these objectives to get this player, to earn these coins to go on the transfer market and buy this player, that player. Obviously, you have to put in your money if you want these legends. They'll do certain, objectives and stuff to get players, but it's few and far between. However, the coolest part of eFootball is that you can actually go in and make your team better, make players and your team as a whole perform better on the pitch by making changes and learning all these things tactically, improving on your knowledge in all these different areas tactically. So that's the awesome part. Forget all the menus, grinding and all that stuff. You can actually be essentially a manager and a coach and everything in one. Defensively, attacking, a head coach, a goalie coach, all of it in one. Figuring out which boosters to add when you get those, figuring out which skills you want to select, and then which ones you want to override if you get some bad skills, because that's the part I don't like. It's random. I wish you could earn skills, earn boosters, and then always select them yourself. They do have the ability, and that's a whole nother video. Again, this is a summary, but you do have the ability to choose boosters, but then for the most part, it's easier to get the random ones, which you could end up getting, for Arojo, a shooting boost, which you don't want. Or for Bebeto, for instance, I got dueling, which is a defensive boost, so I'll have to overwrite that. So that's the bad part of it, but from the position training to get your players proficient in different positions, to the skill training, trying to get your players the skills that will help boost them in their positions, to the actual boosters, giving them attribute boosts in different areas that the player needs. You can see I still am working on that. All my players aren't double boosted, and some that are, I need to overwrite the second boost. And same with the skills. Some of my players have excellent skills that will help them, and some of them I need to overwrite and give them better skills. So there's always work to do. There's always ways to improve your team, not just by going to get new players, but by adding these skills, adding these boosters. And then even then, as you go, you're adapting to, as you get better as a player. Maybe you want to go to a possession-based game, and then you got to get a different manager and change your players accordingly. Or you want to go to out wide, or you want to play quick counter, but you want to do a different formation, and now you need to change this up and that up, and now, no longer do you need crossing on Totti, so you want to play him down the center, and you want more shooting skills added to him. I guess what I'm trying to say is it's an ever evolving process, and depending how long you keep these players in the system, there's just always things you can change, always things you can learn and improve. And right now, being new, I mean, the sky's the limit. There's so much to do, and I am so excited to dive in. That's one of the big reasons I love this game. There's a nostalgic feel to it, with not only the graphics, which some people dog on, but I like them because the player models are great, right? The Cruyffs look like the Cruyffs, the Maradonas look like the Maradonas, the Hollands look like the Hollands, and you get where I'm going. And the gameplay is great. To me, the nostalgic feel in the menus and even in this tactical setup, right? I don't care if it's old school. The information itself is brilliant. So I love it all. You put it all together, and it's awesome. And I know a lot of you are used to the sharp new looks and all the bells and whistles with whether it's content creators or video games, whatever it is. But I will say, for the most part, my community, they have to be okay with just the information being great and not the bells and whistles. Because look at my content, right? I don't put all the bells and whistles on, and you guys appreciate the information, the feedback, all of that. And that's what I appreciate about Konami. Whether you like all the way the menu is laid out and the graphics and this and that, you have to appreciate the details that they put into this game. So go enjoy it. This has been the 4213 in-depth breakdown. I'll see you on the next one. Keep grinding, keep having fun. Peace.